So we'd like to resume with the afternoon's witnesses, and the Commission would like to first call Allyson Caison to testify. There she is.
This is going to get down to brass tacks now. North Carolina.
Thank you, commissioners, and thank you to the board of NCCIT. I'm super proud of you guys. I know how hard you've worked to make this day and this two-day conference happen, and I'm just totally in awe of you. And thank you for allowing me to give my testimony. So my name is Allyson Caison, and I'm a longtime resident of Johnston County and a small business owner there. Johnston County is 30 minutes east of Raleigh and the home of Aero Contractors. My husband and I raised our two now grown sons in Johnston County. We first learned that the CIA had what was called a secret little operation at the airport in 1996 around the Boy Scout campfire. No one knew exactly what they did out there. They just knew they had an office, and it was a big secret. So didn't think about it a whole lot until in mid-November of 2005, an email circulated about an emergency meeting in Raleigh involving a protest out at the airport. That meeting was where we found out what the CIA was doing out at our little county airport. A group of activists from St. Louis had come to deliver citizens' indictments to Aero Contractors, county commissioners, and others. Turns out I knew two of the three principals of Aero Contractors. In fact, I'd baked their family gingerbread houses for them, and their children and my children were schoolmates. These were prominent, well-respected business people in our community. Stop Torture Now was born out of that original meeting, and a group of us, along with many others, have been working on this issue for the past 12 years. We started by trying to educate people, elected officials, and church leaders. We did this by holding listening projects outside post offices in Johnston County where we asked random people what they knew about the issue. They didn't know anything about the issue. We set up meetings with local, state, and federal officials. Quite early on, we realized that the majority of elected officials either knew nothing of the subject, did not want to address it because they felt it was not their responsibility, or they agreed with it in principle in a post-9/11 world. This citizen effort has continued for years and involved activists, people of faith, and numerous organizations from across the state. We held vigils at the airport, governor's mansion, and federal buildings. We have tried everything we could think of to educate the public and our elected officials about the role North Carolina plays in hosting torture flights. We became creative with our efforts, sponsoring actions including civil disobedience at the airport, Johnston County's first and only peace and end torture march through downtown Smithfield, plane spotting events at JNX, banner drops along the highways near the airport, and we adopted the road in front of Aero Contractors for trash pickup, where we went quarterly for 4 years picking up trash. That wasn't lost on a lot of people. Let's see. I'm sorry, I lost my place. Bear with me. Two of us appeared in front of the Johnston County Commissioners nearly every month for over 3 years. We were not allowed to speak until the end of the meeting, which meant sitting through countless hours of county business. Chuck Fager of Quaker House wrote a newsletter every month detailing the latest news on torture from within the United States and around the world. He presented that newsletter in print form, hard copy, to the county commissioners every month. And every month we ask that they investigate Aero Contractors. Our faith leaders, mostly from more urban and university settings, have been staunch supporters of our work and have contributed and supported our efforts from the beginning. It's been the smaller, more rural congregations that we've had a difficult time getting any sort of foothold in. In the Bible Belt, often the Bible is wrapped in the American flag. Christina's telling me to talk into the microphone. So torture is one of those issues that is difficult to think about or talk about in a manner that relates to the average American. It doesn't affect our daily life. We do not see those heart-melting commercials on TV about it. It's just plain ugly, and we don't like to think about it. I think Stop Torture Now has made great strides in educating North Carolinians about rendition and North Carolina's role in it. We have brought the faces and the stories of the men who were rendered and tortured to our neighbors, our fellow Americans. We have made them aware. And in that awareness, we have facilitated some folks to change their mind. Will they come out and join us? Probably not. Do we think it's worth the effort? I think that all of us in Stop Torture Now would say, yes, we do. In closing, Christina asked me to explain how a middle-aged real estate agent soccer mom became involved in working to end torture. I've often said if I got to pick sort of what I would be an activist about, in the beginning it wouldn't have been torture. But it's really simple when I think about why I became involved in this project. I consider myself an activist, I'm a person of faith, and I'm a mom. The activist in me believes that I can make the world a better place by changing it, and that sometimes my ideas are actually better than the people of those in power. As a person of faith, I have to, right? I have to be involved in this. Once you know about the people in the cages, how can we forget them? They've been left there to be forgotten and to die. And then this is the hardest part and the most heartfelt about why I do this. As a mom of 2 boys, I like to think that if my 2 boys were kidnapped, rendered, and tortured, that there'd be another mom out there where they were, like me, trying to end an injustice that starts in my neighborhood. And as Julia Elsey, a friend of mine who was here yesterday, the 95-year-old lady, I don't know if y'all saw her, but as Julia Elsey said to me, we clean up what washes up on our beaches. And I live within hearing distance of the planes. They fly over my house. And so every time I hear the planes overhead, I am reminded of cleaning up our beaches. And what we do for the least of these, we do for God. So with that, I'll take any questions that you might have. That's it.
Thank you so much, Allyson. Do the commissioners have questions? Commissioner Kirk?
Thank you so much, Allyson, and thank you for coming. I wonder if you could talk a little bit more about what it means to you personally to live in community with people who are involved in rendition and who are involved in aero contractors, meeting, in the grocery store or on the street, or what does it mean to you personally? And then also, what do you think about do you think that there has been a harm to Johnson County or to Smithfield because of this relationship with torture?
So what it means to me personally, I mentioned that I made gingerbread houses for these guys, so that means I knew them, right? I interfaced with them at soccer games and PTA meetings and Boy Scout meetings and school events. And so when you get to know somebody on that kind of level, it's hard to imagine that there's another side that they have and that they're doing something so horrendous. So it was very shocking for me to find out at first. But I can't say that these are are people that if you saw, you would think that's an inherently bad person. They are deacons of their churches. They are prominent business people. They're well accepted within our community. And I think that's where one of the problems that we face is that Arrow's stronghold in Johnston County is deep into the social fabric. I asked the fellow who was here from the CIA last night if he could tell me how they picked the principals of Arrow contractors, because, you know, they had to pick guys that wouldn't mind doing what they're doing. And since I knew these fellows, I wanted to kind of know how they found them, and found them to be willing to overlook the rule of law for business. And of course, the fellow from the CIA couldn't tell me any of that, but I've run into one of the Arrow contractors' principals a couple of times at the courthouse, and we speak. It's awkward. I've served hot dogs at the end of the school year party with one of their wives. Again, it's awkward, but I stand strong in my faith, and so I don't think that I'm on the wrong side of morality here, and I'm sorry if I think that they are, but do I think Johnston County is harmed by it and the citizens? I think it's it's insidious. You know, it's, how can I think this about my neighbor? So I don't want to think about this guy that I've been at the cocktail party with, that he's involved in this, that he's a pilot or one of the principals. So there are people that support us. We have learned that over the years. There's a lot of people in Johnston County that support us. Will they ever speak out about it? No, they won't. Arrow is too deeply entrenched into the fabric of the community.
Thank you.
Thank you, Allyson. I think none of us would all be here if it weren't from the local citizens, you know, really pushing back on this. So I'm very grateful for the words that you shared with us. And you briefly touched on this, but if you could expand a little further, how many people do you think share your opinion, whether or not they make it public or not? How many people that you interact with? And how can we get more local citizens to be more open and have a more frank discussion about this issue?
Yeah, I can't honestly give a number. You know, I want to think maybe it's sort of on a national poll where we're split 50-50, but Johnston County has a long history of, I don't know, we had a KKK sign for years on the highway. An interesting little aside about that is that the KKK on that billboard had a phone number, and you could call the KKK for their weekly tip. And so there was an investigative, there was an editor of a local newspaper who became interested in what we were doing out at the airport, and he wrote about it one time. Then he never wrote about it again. But so he went on to look sort of at the race issue in Johnston County, came across this number. So he did what every good reporter would do. You get a phone number, right? You call it. So he called it, and guess who answered? Arrow Contractors, may I help you? So we spent a lot of time in the historic room in Johnston County trying to figure out if there was a connection, if it was just some weird coincidence, and how do we get more people engaged? I wish I knew that. I've tried. We've tried. All of us have tried.
Thank you very much.
Reminds me of some of the,
We have one other question.
some of the conversations.
You knew I had to say something, right? Alice and I both live in Johnston County, and first of all, I want to just say how much I admire you for what you've done. And I guess my question is somewhat rhetorical, but I'd like to know how you keep hopeful in the face of so many defeats.
I think because I am a person of faith, and we stand on the right side of this issue, right? We are not wrong to be here today to be calling out this practice. And I also believe in this, if you fill a bucket up one drop at a time in the beginning, you don't see those drops, so you can't tell you're making any headway. And then eventually, you know, the bucket's half full, and eventually it tips over. And so I believe that what we're doing is one drop at a time, one action at a time, but as citizens, we have to. As people that have strong morals and believe in the rule of law and believe in the law of America, we have to stand up and make noise. So.
Thank you so much. Please join me in thanking Ms. Caison.